Philosophical Thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful land of enchantment, which is also known as the state of New Mexico. And today's date, Thursday, September 29th, 2016. Man, this year is flying by, man. Unbelievable. Yeah, like I said, just trying to make up some of the dead time I had the past couple of weeks on my podcast, so I'm just trying to be a little bit more consistent. And I'm doing alright, and hopefully everyone's feeling the same. Positive energies and so forth, based on all the craziness that's going on in the United States and the world. Yeah, I was just browsing around, checking out some of the stuff, and it was interesting. Someone posted on the ABC7 in was it Alcatraz or San Diego, which is near San Diego, California, when they're all protesting about the one suspect who got shot, and they want to try to keep the peace, and innocent people were getting hurt. Like this one person that was being attacked by activists because he wore a Donald Trump hat. And I'm like, how pathetic can it be? And when I was watching the video, he was like trying to run from the crowd, and the rest of the goons are just trying to kick him and trip him, and someone took his hat. It's like, yeah, let's all gang up on him. Show your true manhood. What's that guy? What's he got to do? What happened with that one gentleman? I'll just get his name right here. I just got the link right in front of me. I remember hearing about the case, and there was some claims too. It could be considered orchestrated. Alfred Alongo, a refugee from Uganda. And so I was watching, the real big thing about it was going on with the whole police, and of course they're all complaining on trying to get public information. Hey, if you lose the screenshot, you can release the whole video. That's when one protester said outside the Caucasian police department. So when I was watching the video, I was like, not impressed. You chase a man for wearing a Donald Trump hat. You have lost your merit, the one who participated in this incident. There's a question I have. Were you hired thugs that got bussed in and paid $50 to get a free lunch? And even in the other videos, they try to block someone in the car, and the person just accelerating. They all like freaked out. Oh my God! But you know what? When you stand in front of vehicles trying to make them stop in good faith, you're a threat. You are a threat, an assailant. And the person feared for their life. They fully accelerated, and everyone went, oh my God! You know what? Those clowns chose poorly. And don't get me wrong, I did activism work myself. I protested, criticized, called people out. But the whole goal is not to beat up on innocent bystanders. Plant the seeds, educate, share information, honorable discussions. I remember I was out a couple of times. I had a couple of shows. You could see the archives. I know the one that was the Florida Police Department when that one homeless guy got slapped by in the video, the YouTube video, when Officer Victor Ramirez, Fort Lauderdale Police Officer Victor Ramirez, slapped one homeless guy, and I think he got arrested he got charged for 2 misdemeanors on assault. And a lot of people protested, and they went to the police station and all that. But nothing really violently happened. It didn't go around beating up on innocent people. And even plus, when I was at the City Hall a few days later, interviewed folks there as well. They didn't go around beating up on police or beating up on innocent bystanders. See, that's how you do it. Yeah, people are angry and so forth, but it has to be done honorably. You don't go after innocent bystanders. That shows cowardice, insecurity, and possibly repressive hatred towards yourselves. It's like the time when the riots in Los Angeles, Rodney King, they were beating up on innocent people too. I condemn it. And it's very stupid and pathetic. Not to all the people that demonstrated, not all the people, 200 people that demonstrated. However, those who were the assailants on beating up on a bystander because he wore a Donald Trump hat, it shows you're not manly. You got no guts and you're insecure. And I don't give a damn if you like me or not, or call me out. Big deal. When folks do a protest and rallies, plant the seeds of knowledge, not hatred, repressive hatred. That means taking out innocent people. Unacceptable, null and void. And who benefits the most? The police state, the federal government. The whole thing is there's cases of trying to federalize the police with programs that they have to get involved. And even the UN's trying to do the same thing. Do you want that? Oh, the folks that are protesting on an occasion that were business up by innocent people, do you want that? Hell no. It'll make it a lot worse, a lot more bureaucratic red tape. And think before you take action. I have stuff on there too. You can look up federalizing or globalizing our local police, and you'll be very shocked. That's what the information age is about, and everyone needs to do that. And I'm critical of people that supported other folks and so forth, but I don't have to have a physical altercation. And people try to give me a hard time, people try to call me a racist and so forth. You know what I said? Especially when you use that comment. When bend over bobs or trees cat quacks become a race, then we'll talk. They get dumbfounded. Intellectual ammunition is the way to do it. And he's talking to a person who's not a Trump supporter. Okay? But don't assume that. We'll make an ass out of yourselves. That'll be enough ranting on that. So, first thing, got a good amount of stuff here. First thing I'm going to do is from The Intercept. It says here, U.S. military is building a $100 million drone base in Africa. This is by Nick Turzit. It reads here from high above. A gazette almost blends into the cocoa-colored wasteland that surrounds it. Only when you descend farther, and can you make out a city that curves around an airfield before fading into the desert. Once a nexus of camel caravans hauling tea and salt across Sahara. Agadez is now a West African paradise for smugglers, and a station for refugees and migrants intent on reaching Europe shores by any means necessary. And there's some interesting secret stuff in here too about the projects they're doing in Nigeria, but you can just see for yourself. That's from the U.S. Africa Command, which is part of the One World Order agenda, Club of Rome, etc. Okay, just give you a hint. Africans fleeing unrest and poverty are not, however, the only foreigners making their way into this town in the center of Nigeria. U.S. military documents reveal new information about American drone base under construction on the outskirts of the city. The long-planned project considers the most important U.S. military construction construction effort in Africa, according to form these secret files obtained by the Intercept through the Freedom of Information Act, is slated to cost $100 million and is just one of a number of recent military initiatives in the impoverished nation. The base is the latest sign, experts say, of an effort increasing emphasis on a counter-terror operations in the north and west of the continent, as the only country in the region willing to allow a U.S. base for MQ-9 Reapers, a newer, larger, and potentially more lethal model than a venerable Predator drone. Nigeria has positioned itself to be the key regional hub for U.S. military operations, with Agadez serving as a primary outpost for the launching intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions against a plethora of terror groups. For years, the U.S. operated from a base in Niamey, Nigeria's capital, but in early 2014, Captain Rick Cook, then chief of U.S. Africa Command's Engineering Division, mentioned the potential for a new semi-permanent base-like facility in Nigeria. That September, the Washington Post Craig Whitlock exposed plans to base drones at Agadez. Within the days, the embassy in Niamey, U.S. Embassy in Niamey, announced that AFRICOM was indeed assessing the possibility of establishing a temporary expeditionary contingency support location. There, the outpost, according to the communique, presents an attractive option from which to base ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assets, given its proximity to the threats in the region and the complexity of operating with the vast distance of African geography. Air Force documents submitted to Congress in 2015 note that the U.S. negotiated an agreement with the government of Nigeria to allow for the construction for a new runway and all associated pavements, facilities, and infrastructure adjacent to the Nigeria Armed Forces Base, Irini 201 or Airbase 201, south of the city of Agadez. When the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2016 was introduced last April, embedded in it was a $50 million request for construction of an airfield and base camp at Agadez, Nigeria, to support operations in West Africa. When President Obama signed a defense bill, that sum was authorized. Yep, President Obama. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We'll do everything with the Imperial plan. There you go. Reporting by the Intercept found the true cost to be double that sum. In addition to the $50 million to construct Airbase 201, another $38 million in operation and maintenance OM&M funds was slated to be spent to support troop labor and ancillary equipment, according to a second set of undated, heavily redacted, formally secret documents obtained from U.S. Africa Command by the Intercept. But $38 million O&M price tag for expenses like fuel and troops per diem has already jumped to $50 million, according to new figures provided by the Pentagon, while sustainment costs are now projected at $12.8 billion per year. Files obtained by the Intercept attest to the importance of Agadez for future missions by drones, also known as remotely piloted aircraft or RPAs. The top Millicon military construction project for the U.S. AFRICOM is located in Agadez, Nigeria, to construct a C-17 and MQ-9 capable airfield, reads a 2015 planning document. RPA presence in Northwest Africa supports operations against 7 designated foreign terrorist organizations. This is by the Department of State. Moving operations to Agadez aligns persistent ISR to current and emerging threats over Nigeria and Chad, supports French regionalization, and extends range to cover Libya and Nigeria. You see what's going on here, folks? It's like an empire, you know? Club of Rome 101. The Pentagon is tight-lipped about the outpost. However, due to operational security considerations, we don't release details on numbers of personnel and specific missions or locations, including information regarding the Nigerian military air base located in Agadez. I hope I pronounced that name right. Name the city right. Pentagon spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell L. Valdanza told The Intercept in an email, stressing that drones are not yet flying from the outpost. However, the declassified documents say construction will be completed next year. The documents offer further details, including plans for a 1,830-meter paved asphalt runway capable of supporting C-17 cargo aircraft and miscellaneous light and medium-load aircraft, a 17,458 square meter parking apron and taxiway for light-load ISR aircraft, and the installation of three 140 by 140 foot relocatable fabric tension aircraft hangar, as well as all the standards and infrastructure for troops, including force protection like barriers, fences, and entry control points. While AFRICOM failed to respond for requests for information about the project, a May 2016 satellite photos of the site provides a status report. The image shows that the main runway has been repaved, said Dan Gettinger, the co-founder and co-director of the Center for the Study of the Drone at Bard College and author of a guide to identifying drone bases from satellite imagery. Near the runway, there is a structure that appears to be a future hangar, though it's still under construction. There's also a new dirt road that runs a fair distance from the runway to a U.S. base that enclosed with a perimeter wall, and there are numbers of shelters there for personnel as well as a command center, all things that you expect on the base. There's photos on here by Google Earth. All right, according to documents from Nigeria, Nigeria was the only country in Northwest Africa willing to allow basing of MQ-9s, the larger, newer cousins of the Predator drone. The document went on to note President expressed willingness to support an RPAs. The U.S. military activity in Nigeria is not isolated. There's a trend toward greater engagement and more permanent presence in West Africa. Maghreb and Sahel, noted Adam Moore of the Department of Geography at the University of California, Los Angeles, and co-author of an academic study of the U.S. military's presence in Africa. Since 9/11, in fact, the United States has poured vast amounts of military aid into the region. In 2002, for example, the State Department launched a counterterrorism program known as the Pan-Sahel Initiative, which became the Trans-Sahara Counterterrorism Partnership, which is acronym TSCTP, to assist the militaries of Chad, Mali, Mauritania, and Niger. Between 2009 and 2013 alone, the U.S. allocated $288 million in TSCTP funding, according to a 2014 report by the Government Accountability Office. Nigeria was one of the top of the three recipients, netting more than $30 million. Interesting, huh? Yeah, very interesting, my friends. This is, it's very, so that's why you gotta always see things in a bigger picture. But, you know how that goes. You know how that goes when people try to make things a little bit more than what it is. Hail to the Empire, of course. I'm just gotta go all the way down here because I just took a photo. Oops, that's the last one. Sorry about that. Woo! U.S. Special Operations Forces regularly train with Nigeria's army, and the U.S. has transferred millions of dollars worth of planes, trucks, and other great to that impoverished nation. In a 2015 report to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Subcommittee on Africa and Global Health, Lauren Polk Blanchard of the Congressional Research Service noted that since 2006, Nigeria received more than $82 million in assistance through the Department of Defense's Global Train and Equip program. In close coordination with the partner militaries in West Africa, including Nigeria, the U.S. U.S. AFRICOM supports a range of security and capacity building efforts in the greater Sahelian region. Baldanza told The Intercept these efforts support U.S. diplomatic and national security objectives and are designed to strengthen relationships with African partners, promote stability and security, and enable our African partners to address their security threats. Stability and security have, however, proved elusive. In 2010, for example, a military junta overthrew Nigeria's president as he attempted to extend his rule. In fact, all of the original members of the Pan-African Initiative have fallen victim to military uprisings. Chad saw attempt coups in 2006 and 2013. Members of Mauritania's military overthrew the government in 2005 and again in 2008, and a U.S.-trained military officer toppled the democratically elected president of Mali in 2012. The region, relatively free from transitional terrorist threats in 2001, is now beset by regular attacks from Boko Haram, a once tiny non-violent Islamic sect in Nigeria, has since pledged allegiance to the Islamic State and threatens the stability of not only its homeland but also Cameroon, Chad, and Niger. And Boko Haram is just one of the 17 militant groups now menacing the region, according to the Department of Defense's Africa Center for Strategic Studies. Drones have long been integral to U.S. efforts in Nigeria. In 2012, according to the files obtained by The Intercept, Nigeria agreed to host U.S. drones in Niamey, the capital, on the condition that operations would eventually be shifted to a more remote military base in Agadez. In February 2013, the U.S. began flying Predator drones out of the capital. Later in the spring, an AFRICOM spokesperson revealed that the U.S. air operations that were providing support for intelligence collections, with French forces conducting operations in Mali and with other partners in the region. The Air Force recently announced plans to upgrade shower and latrine facilities in Niamey to serve a study of 202 to 250 personnel a day. The U.S. shares that base with France at Gettinger. The base in Niamey, he explained, is strategically important simply because to the north there's Mali and the threat posed by the Al-Qaeda linked group, including Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. To the south you have Nigeria and Boko Haram. So there's a lot of demand for ISR capabilities. At Agadez, he noted that the U.S. doesn't need to share the facility with the French military or commercial aircraft, and it is, he said, more strategically located in Niamey. As UCLA's Moores puts it, the recent trajectory of sites and money suggests that Nigeria is becoming, after Djibouti, the second most important country for the U.S. military counterterrorism operations on the continent. Yep, the war on terror is expand the empire. How I see it. So all your money in U.S. tax dollars are still going to waste. And they said, nope, it's a security thing. But one day, you may tick off the wrong folks, tell them how to live and think. Is it possible blowback? Yeah, so you have to expect that too. It's like I said, imperialism is still dangerous. That you have people have to really look at this. Nothing wrong giving folks a hand, but it's getting a little bit cockeyed. Where's all the money where's all the money coming from? The Federal Reserve. Let's put it out of thin air. Bing! The magic lamp, magic wand. Ding! So I'm not too crazy about this myself, and I say that in good faith. And it's always, and I remembered I used to have a shortwave radio, and that's be like listening to shows and news and reports on stuff that's happening in Chad, Niger. They've always been having battles, so it's nothing really new. During that time, it was in the 80s, and I was worried about South Africa. How about the rest of the countries that are in Africa? Oh, but it's not a black and white thing. But I'm digressing. I know that for a fact. But there's one thing for sure. When does this have to stop? That's the question. So everyone out there, guys, really start thinking about this really well. More drone bases and all that to fight terrorism. Al-Qaeda, ISIL, ISIS, oh my. You know what I say about ISIS and ISIL? One world order funded. New world order funded. And people thought I was crazy, but not anymore. Alright, enough of that. This was from RT. And this is like a report. They say military-style armed police arrest 20 plus Dakota Access protesters. It says here more than 20 people were arrested at Dakota Access pipeline construction site Wednesday amid ongoing protests against the four-state $3.7 billion project. North Dakota police reportedly handled the rally with military-style equipment and armored vehicles. Hey, all hail to militarization. Hip hip hooray, hip hip hooray. 95 people who have not been arrested as dozens of people continue their actions to overturn the pipeline construction. Law enforcement officials claim the arrests were made for criminal trespass on private property, possession of stolen property, and resisting arrest. However, one of the participants, Thomas H. Joseph II, said on Facebook that police hit them as they gathered in prayer, unarmed, prayed, sang songs, and attempted to leave. We had a powerful moment of prayer that you can see in my older video posted minutes before the video when the police blocked us in. He wrote in another post, he added, no threats, no vandalism, no violence was taken on our part. Sacred Stone Camp, which has been housing dozens of demonstrators since May also posted pictures from the scene on Facebook. And the authorities deployed armed personnel with shotguns, assault rifles, military vehicles, and aerial spray on peaceful water protectors gathered in prayer, the camp members wrote. The Morton County Sheriff's Office confirmed in a statement that police responded with armored vehicles, specialized equipment, and less lethal ammunition using beanbag rounds, but denied reports of any spray being used. Investigators said it was a crop duster spraying fields. Morton County Sheriff Kyle Kirschmeyer seemed to downplay the police response, saying that one officer raised his weapon after a protester on horseback charged at him. Charging officer combined with totality of the situation presented an imminent threat to the officer, he said. It's a claim. And it says here, calling themselves world protectors, protesters say the pipeline puts the Missouri River at risk of an oil spill. The river is the only water supply for long-standing Rock Sioux tribe. Its members also insist that the 1,772-mile project would threaten its ancestral cultural resources, since it would run less than a half mile away from their reservation. So they have, like I said, they have their straight points too. So I can't really argue with them on that. But I just find it as a turnoff that you're going to use military-style armed police for peaceful protesters. Don't you get it? They want to call they want to say these protesters are considered maybe terrorists. Unbelievable. And of course, I've seen Ben Swan's video on this. Very interesting. And I know a lot of us have been talking about it too. So it's got to keep the pressure on this, because technically, what I say, man, we don't need pipelines. Leave it alone. Shoot. Don't get me wrong, I support people working, but it's getting too out of hand. You have to have a balance factor. Conform with the land, not change it. That's how I look at it. Well, yeah. And this came out yesterday. It's from 21st Century Wire. And I like it about the whole veto, like the veto of the 9/11 lawsuit bill. What's really behind the Senate's override of Obama's vote of Saudi 9/11 lawsuit bill? And of course, here, the 21st Century says, while the U.S. media follows the red herring of this legislative drama, which is Saudi Arabia, the real point of this bill and why President Obama is so vehemently opposing it, it's going completely unnoticed. If any case was brought to court by 9/11 families to sue Saudi Arabia for state-sponsored terror regarding the attacks in New York City on September 11, 2001, the court will find there is no real forensic case proving Saudi involvement in this event. Other problems will crop up too. For starters, at least 7 alleged hijackers were actually found to be alive after their faces were plastered on U.S. TV screens after 9/11. As it stands, U.S. government's official story of 9/11 so flimsy and full of holes, including the complete omission or mention of the collapse of WTC Building 7, which was hit by nothing and yet collapsed on its own footprint in 7 seconds, and the lack of any plane wreckage at the Pentagon. We're meant to believe that the passenger airliner evaporated into thin air on impact, and no real CCTV footage has been provided to back the government's own wild explanation. In actuality, the U.S. government would love a dead-end lawsuit against Saudi Arabia, which could only result in some out-of-court settlement anyway, because this would supply a nice diversion away from any further scrutiny of the U.S. government's bogus explanation of what really happened that day. And that's a great point. More to the point, however, is the real potential story here. If passed, this bill will allow a number of people, particularly those in Syria, to sue the U.S., British, French, Dutch, Norwegian, Polish, Turkish, and Saudi Arabia, and Qatar too, all who are actively involved in supplying money, equipment, arms, and military training to a number of known Salafist terrorist fighting groups in Syria. Key point: why is Obama protecting Saudi Arabia? One of Obama's top financial partners in the dirty war on Syria is Saudi Arabia, who has also paid for off-the-books CIA operations here. Unlike Saudi and 9/11, by definition, this is state-sponsored terrorism. The House is expected to hold a vote later this week. It could be the first override of a presidential veto during the Obama administration. Okay, I'll just keep on here. And it goes right down here. The Senate on Wednesday voted to override President Obama's veto legislation that will allow 9/11 victims' families sue by the Saudi Arabian government over its alleged support for terrorists who carried out the attacks 97-1. And this is, I'm not gonna. You can put the link on here to continue the post, but I'll just read it from all the way down. End of this actual site, so you guys can read the rest of it, because it's been said enough times. The House is expected to vote later in the day. Is successful. It'll be the first time Congress has overwritten a veto during the Obama administration. Overriding a presidential veto is something we don't take lightly, but it was important in this case that the families of the victims of 9/11 be allowed to pursue justice, even if that pursuit causes some diplomatic discomforts. Senator Charles E. Schumer, Democrat from New York, who co-authored the bill with Senate John Cornyn, Republican from Texas, said in a statement. Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid, Democrat from Nevada, cast a lone vote to sustain the veto after receiving a letter from Obama arguing the consequences could be devastating and urging him to vote to sustain the veto. Reid voted against the override despite telling reporters earlier this month, "I support that legislation and Schumer's efforts." You're just a full of crap, you bend over bobbing quack. He's always had the president's back, said Reid spokesman Adam Gentleson. Yeah, go figure. Birds of a feather flock together, right? Both chambers passed legislation without dissent earlier this year, but now several lawmakers are echoing the White House's argument that the legislation could set a dangerous precedent, inviting other nations to respond by suing American diplomats, military personnel, and other officials in federal and foreign courts. Critics of the bill are now focusing on how to scale back the measure once it becomes law. Approximately 20 senators have signed onto a letter expressing their intention to return to the issues during the lame duck if there are negative consequences once the 9/11 bill becomes law. And you can continue to read the article in the Washington Post. There's a video footage in there as well. Well, the truth of the matter is, I say this: let the damn dominoes fall. Domino effect, absolutely. But I am expecting, like I said in my last episode, expect delays and so forth. So, and you have to have a lot of merit to prove the case that the Saudis were involved. Well, I always said before, they're part of the same network under the same umbrella of the One World Order, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not saying everyone's people Saudi's bad, but you got your criminal elements, and I know a lot will come to human rights violations. Oh, they're great. So they're very poor, I would say, because I know people have been there, so it was very disgusting. But one thing I said, like I said before, one thing I like, it will create another dent, too. But you have to look at all angles. And I hope and pray the heirs of the 9/11 families will be expecting this, because you have to have forensic evidence, hard merit, concrete merit, to say they were actually involved. 28 pages is nice, don't get me wrong, but the buildings themselves and so forth, you got to really look at that. But one thing I said for sure, create another dent. Everything's done by steps, friends. That's how those tyrants do it. They do everything by steps. We have to do the same thing. So, just like I said, let the confounded dominoes fall. That's how I see it. Alright. I got this one yesterday. He had a libertarianrepublic.com, and it said Jill Stein wants automatic weapons off the street. This is by Elise J. Adesina. Green Party presidential nominee Jill Stein wants automatic weapons off the street. In the Green Party town hall on Stossel, Stein was asked if she believed the Second Amendment guaranteed the right to own guns. While she affirmed her belief in common sense regulation, she ultimately agreed Americans had the right to own guns. It's like common sense regulation. Come on, it's like a broken record player. Good grief. We can say you have the right to own guns, but let's have common sense regulations. See, right there, compromise. All right. Let automatic weapons off the streets. Let's do background checks, and let's end the immunity of gun manufacturers and for distributors. Yeah, could we say, I support neo-mercantilism. Stein said, why should they only be the only industry that's not held accountable? I don't know what the hell she's talking about. Good grief. Hopefully she just go after Big Pharma. That'd be better, yeah? Automatic weapons are rarely used in crimes or murders, according to the website Gunsight. It's like the website Gunsight, but the Gunsight spells Guncite. There have only been 3 murders with automatic weapons since 1934. One of those murders was committed by a law enforcement officer who was sentenced to 18 years in jail. Even for semi-automatic weapons, they were used only in a small minority of crimes. Huffington Post calculated that semi-automatic weapons such as AR-15s are used 2% of murders, including mass shootings. Stein also echoed Clinton on gun manufacturers and how they are not held accountable to the same standards of other industries. What the hell she's talking? It's like a Twilight Zone here. Bizarro world. However, the website PolitiFact ruled Clinton's statements false last year. PolitiFact quoted Walter Olson's senior fellow at the Cato Institute. Is not all unique to the gun industry. It is a version of liability law Congress developed for an industry that was under very heavy attack. Also said, referring to a slew of litigation against gun sellers and makers that prompt Congress to pass the law. Stein has struggled in the polls, averaging just 2.4%, according to Real Clear Politics. Libertarian presidential nominee Gary Johnson is polling above her, averaging 7.4. Next presidential debate is October 2009. There's a video with the answer at 21 minutes, so you can check it out yourself. And I'm just like, it's just like, come on. Good grief. It's like bizarro world, like you see all these major parties now are just dumb-downing the cause. And don't get me wrong, I'm like saying like they may have some good intentions, this particular party. Alright, and maybe some good folks in there. But there's claims, allegations, they call it green it like watermelons, green on the outside, red on the inside. So people kind of claim to be commies. I don't know. I'm not going to make that particular judgment, but when it comes to government knows best, some of the stuff I spoke from the Green Party, what I learned firsthand, I got to question all that. But it doesn't mean they're always wrong. Doesn't mean I'm not going to disagree with them on everything else. But people got to think before they speak. You better start doing your homework. I'm not saying you don't need an NRA, but you just say do your homework on these things before listening to these political figureheads or candidates that everyone's manifesting and don't know the whole concept. Common sense regulations. I'm like, good grief. It's like the war doublespeak. It's like Donald Trump. Oh yeah, I agree with Hillary Clinton on the no fly, no buy. It's like another one. It's like bunch of you damn hypocrites. Driving is like that's why I tell folks I didn't follow some hype or anything like that with these clowns. And of course, Gary Johnson had his vice presidential running mate already maybe leaving or he left. A neocon stooge. Like, come on. You think we're that damn dumb? Hell no, man. Been doing this stuff, been studying this stuff for a long time. Doesn't mean I'm an expert and have all the answers, okay? But this is absolutely ludicrous what presidential candidate Jill Stein has to say. Dr. Jill Stein. Jill Stein, with all due respect, do your homework. Do your homework. That's all I have to say. I can share your information. Don't be shy. Go on there, do your little homework, and before you jump on some crazy bandwagon. Especially talk about supporting Hillary Clinton's claim. Hitlery. She'll toss you into the pit of rattlesnakes or wolves to pursue her goals. All right, I'm gonna be back in a moment, so stick around. Oops, I hit wrong button there. That's okay. But yeah, that's why I'm like, very pro Bill of Rights on this. Well, next one here came from the Freedom Outpost. Check them out. They got some real good links. And this one here is entitled, just by Tim Brown. Political prisoner Ryan Payne. Mark McConnell most likely received $25,000 for forming feds during the Malheur occupation. As it reads here, there are true friends and there are traitors, backstabbers. It appears that political prisoner Ryan Payne is now claiming that Mark McConnell, who was outed in court as an informant for the government, more than likely received $25,000 for his role in betraying men and women who took a constitutional stand against Wildlife Refuge late last year and earlier this year. The following is from court documents which we reported about last week concerning McConnell, who is the driver being referred into the transcript. And that says right here, DCSO 4, okay. And do you remember who was briefed to you as far as the white vehicle? Who's in the white vehicle? Officer 7. Oh yes, mostly I know for sure. I remember being told that Fencing was in the white vehicle, and believe I'm his brother. Good grief, Ryan or Brian Bundy. And I recall knowing from the briefing that Amin would be in the Jeep with Buddha, the person I know as Buddha. This DCSO4, Officer 7, I don't know his real name, but I can't remember. I didn't recognize the name of the driver. DC4 goes okay, and Officer 7, and I can't even recall the driver's name now. This is from Deb Jordan of the Pete Santilli Show reports. The driver's name was Mark McConnell, and he wasted no time to go on defense when news spread on the social media that, according to testimony of Oregon State Trooper Jeremiah Burkert, he was an informant who gave OSP FBI the logistics and support they needed to execute the ambush that led to the death of Lavoy Fencium and the arrest of Amon Bundy, Ryan Bundy, Sharana Cox, Ryan Payne, and Brian Cavalier. Those are closest to McConnell said. Mark denies having worked with law enforcement to make the possible ambush that would lead to one man's death and the incarceration of the Occupy leadership. McConnell's official stance was he did not do it, and Oregon State Trooper Burkett lied on the stand. While McConnell refused to speak with me for the purpose of writing this article, he has spoken to many about what he said was a radical idea being formed at the refuge and readily admits he did inform law enforcement and FBI of plans to kidnap Sheriff David Ward's children and use explosives found on the refuge to blow up the Harney County Courthouse. Interesting accusation, I would say. 2 days after the death of Lavoy Fitzsimmons, I spoke with McConnell in room 123 at the now infamous Silver Spur Motel in Burns, Oregon. I asked him point blank about how it could be everyone in the convoy was arrested except him. His reply was simply, I'm not really sure, but when they questioned me, it was pretty clear that they didn't even know who I was, he said. Maybe it was because I wasn't like all the other retards up there who couldn't stay off social media. I stayed under the radar. I had a room in town. I fed myself. I didn't start a fundraiser. And then I asked him to please explain to me how it all went down that night. It was crazy, because I thought, this is it. I'm going to jail. Jordan said McConnell told her. Then they put me on my knees, and I spent the next 2 hours on the cold ground. They questioned me, he said, and then after they talked to me for a while, they just let me go. I guess they figured I was a nobody who just got caught up in the whole thing, and that was probably because I was smart and stayed away from the cameras, and so they told me that they couldn't arrest me because they didn't have an indictment for me. To be honest, I can't really tell you why I wasn't arrested. For the record, following McConnell's video posting, Jordan communicated to me that she has suspicions of McConnell being an informant, and so did others. Jordan mentioned that what took place was an ambush similar to claims of Sharana Cox. I was effing ambushed, he scolded, and it was a legal effing stop. And people need to stop calling it that. McConnell told Jordan. And you want to know something else? If Leroy had rushed me like he did to those guys, I would probably have shot him too. Okay. Sounds like he may be I've seen the videos. Looks like McConnell may be contradicting, but I'll just leave it at that. That's really all you need to know about Mark McConnell. Anyone viewing the video of Fitzsimmons' murder will clearly see there was not rushing by Fitzsimmons, nor it was possible for him to do so in over 3 feet of snow. So, McConnell has no merit according to this article. Okay, I'll be fair. Enter Ryan Payne, another Oregon occupier who was arrested on January 26, 2016, along with 7 others. Payne says they needed people to help when they took their stand. When the occupation began, we struggled to find people who were just willing to come to Oregon to help with the protests, and so we all just start calling the contacts on our phones. McConnell was one of those contacts in mind, he said. Payne did not want to believe McConnell was an informant. He had been assigned to personal security for Amon Bundy because of this military training, the work on the border, and a willingness to stand with them at the refuge. Like everything else concerning McConnell, this whole story about kidnapping plans and blowing up buildings doesn't make any sense, said Payne. If what Mark is saying were true, then my arrest would have been about something much different. It would have been about that, not a conspiracy to impede BLM and Fish and Wildlife from doing their duty. Mark didn't come up there to stop some radical plan. He came there to do just what he said, and that was just to watch me and report back to the FBI like he has been doing for the past 2 years. Payne went on to the state, and he said his attorney discovered that at least 2 checks were issued to an informant or informants for the participation with the D.C. government. One of the checks issued to informants was $25,000, and the other was for $10,000. Payne doesn't know if they were to the same person or 2 individuals. However, Payne was quick to shoot down any claim that the occupiers were out to do anyone or any harm. There was never a plan to kidnap Ward's kids, and there was never a plan to blow up buildings, he said. Where is the proof? Did it ever come out in court? I was never questioned about it, and neither was anyone else, to my knowledge, except maybe Jason Blomgren, who started when he asked that there may have been a discussion of last resort plans to plant IEDs to slow down the FBI if they came after us. And to my knowledge, I don't ever remember even having had that conversation with Jason, nor do I think he ever said I did. No, McConnell was sent there to gather intel and cause division, and that's exactly what he did, and exactly what he's still doing, he added. We all knew the minute he was let go and he had set us all up, he was working with them to figure out a way to get us all together so they could end the occupation, and that is exactly what he accomplished, and a good man died because of Mark McConnell. Others spoke out about McConnell as well, but McConnell is now a marked man for his betrayal of men and women who took a stand against a criminal government. No one is advocating violence against him, but I think we would like to see him be brought to justice for his role in aiding and abetting criminal government and a land seizure. In other words, treason. If Judas got his reward for selling out the Lord Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, then should not Mark McConnell receive something similar under law? Well. Interesting. Something, but remember, you always have to expect this, my friends. Okay? Someone's gonna give. Like I said, when you do stuff like this, expect infiltrators and plants. It's like everything else. This is just an example. It's a real shame. A lot of people are jumping the gun. Oh, they're guilty. Without judicial due process. So if McConnell, based on some contradictions he made, about McThiam, right? I hope I pronounced his name correctly. Lavoy Fissium. If he made that statement, as far as I'm concerned, he is a narc. He is a snitch. But, like I said before, I hope I'm wrong. And if he is, a bend over Bob to the state. Brand him, just name him Butt Boy McConnell. And let everyone know, just call him Butt Boy McConnell. But, like I said, as always, claims, but like I said, that video itself was really messed up. And you go look at the links here too to make your own decisions. But I always say, my friends, government in Latin means control of the mind. So it's a real shame what happened to those folks out there. Like I always say too, a little rebellion now and then is good. And it does remind me when that one I was watching a video about the Waco. Tears of endangerment. And this one young girl talked about, she made a claim that David Koresh was trying to molest her. And one good thing the committee did is he tossed that out because he said they knew right there it's completely irrelevant, has nothing to do with the case. Very similar, I would say, correct? Alright. This came out a couple of days ago, right? Yeah, a few days ago, I would say, to be honest. This is by a gentleman named Nate from the freedomfightertimes.com. It's entitled United Nations just officially announced a global communist takeover. The New World Order reconvenes. Says here, a long-held conspiracy theory yet again gets proven true. The UN at the 71st regular session has aggregated the role of the United Nations in promoting a new global human order into their agenda. In addition to the aforementioned under Section A, titled Promotion of Sustained Economic Growth and Sustainable Development in accordance with the relevant resolutions of the General Assembly and recent United Nations conferences, is also a plan for total globalization and interdependence. And there's some links on there you can check it out yourself. Okay, so under the allocation of agenda items reside to the Declaration of Formation of a new global human order, and adopted the General Assembly in its second plenary meeting on September 16, 2016. The official adoption of such ideology brings to the light global conspiracy against humanity to form a new world order as mentioned by world leaders and selected governmental groups. Contained with global sustainable development goals or global goals is a practical declaration of war against the common man, conceived assembly at the 74th plenary meeting, and the role of the United Nations in promoting a new global human order. This resolution has just been crafted back into the global agenda for the United Nations on the 16th of September 2016, tied directly to Sustainable Development Goals. Is the plan for New World Order meeting that in September 2015 when the global goals were adopted. So it was official declaration and adoption of the agenda for the New World Order. And they got some links on here too on resolutions. Alright, because secondly, in addition, the adoption of a new global order, human order to the agenda for the 2016 year is planned to revoke the need for national borders and national sovereignty. Under Section 21 is a further adoption of interdependency and globalization, and it tells you about the role, and it gives links there. It says here in subsection A role of the United Nations promoting development in the context of globalization and interdependence. So you can look at these resolutions yourself, and international migration and development. And interesting there too. So definitely check it out, and you can make your own judgment. A well-known communist got his idea passed into the UN General Assembly. They were just reinforced this year. Cheddi Jagan, the fourth president of Guyana, was a known communist who created the proposal for a new global human order that was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on December 14, 2002. Cheddi Jagan's communist past. Winston Churchill was along by Jagan's unabashed Marxism and Leninism and was convinced Jagan could allow the Soviet Union a foothold in Latin America. There was strong behind the scenes pressure from the United States, and the CIA asserted that he had ties to the Soviet Union. This prompted a British military intervention only days after his election. Jagan was resigned as chief minister after 133 days. Jagan's vision for a global human order. Inspired by a vision of enormous potential for human development created by the end of the Cold War, the accelerated rate of technological development and the deepening interdependence of nations, the late President Dr. Cheddi Jagan urged that states should now grasp the opportunity to build an enlightened international partnership based on mutual respect, democratic governance, popular participation, and equal opportunity for all peoples to live in peace and prosperity. At the heart of the proposal is eradication of poverty and overall human development. Essential is success and is the political will to address these challenges by identifying new and innovative ways of financing development and by mobilizing all actors on the domestic and international stage in support of this cause. In conclusion, and with undeniable evidence provided, the end goal of the United Nations is total control under a communist-style central government. The ideology of communism is actively fueling the revolution called sustainable development. Every action taken by the UN in itself moves towards a communist new world order. These contents, okay, you can that's really it there. So share this and all that good stuff. I've seen the video that they have on here on Jagan's vision, and I am not impressed. He sounds like a used car salesman and probably funded by the same World Bank, IMF, or central banks. So one thing about these parties, these movements, they're funded by someone a lot greater. It is nothing new. But the truth of the matter is, my friends, what you're seeing right now is a very good example of every nation and continent in the world being galvanized one way or the other in a long period of time. And a very good example was going on in Europe, okay, with the refugee status in Europe. What they're doing is trying to galvanize humanity by eviscerating their heritage, culture, and individuality. Okay, it's just an example of what's happening, because it's been going on all over the world. And I can keep going and going on this, but I'll be digressing. And folks, you gotta look at everything a lot bigger. Don't follow the hype. Examine the fine print. And the New World Order doesn't give a damn about any of us. They don't want us to think freely. They don't want us to have individuality. They want us all to be a bunch of drones in the same technocratic, tyrannical plantation. Okay? So it is good article, but there's all those links in there. Please check this out and share it to everyone you know, including your social media networks. Okay? Death to the New World Order, and I've been saying it for a long, long time. And speaking of this is from IntelliHub. Came out today, and it's entitled "Forget Agenda 21. UN's 2030 Agenda Will Transform the World." It's by Daisy Luther. And she says here, if you think Agenda 21 was bad, you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait until you learn the creepily utopian 2030 agenda has in store for us all. Once Germany has stepped forward with their ideas of how to speed up the arrival of a one-world government, while all eyes were on Obama with his creepily NWO speech, the German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier gave an address which largely unnoticed. It was a lengthy speech. You can read his entire address here, but these are some takeaway points. We could choose to put our faith in the power of diplomacy, or shrug our shoulders in the face of the conflict of Syria, Libya, Iraq, and Yemen, he said. Know that Europe also faces a choice of fighting to hold the region together or allowing it to fall apart again by overrun by populists. The United States has also faced with a choice. In 6 weeks' time, here too, the choice is about the supposed withdrawal from the crisis-ridden world, which are some calling for, or cooperation with international partners to solve some of those problems. He continues, noting that this choice is important for all of us. Indeed, withdrawal, resignation, going it alone, or responsibility for a better future, that is a choice in many places, he said. The United Nations would remain the central forum for tackling these issues, he said, in context of all the crisis meetings. It gives me hope that we made an important choice, the right choice of the direction we want to take, and that we have chosen unity and sustainability. He said, calling the 2030 Agenda a global pact that is a point of convergence for dealing with poverty and underdevelopment. Now we know they want to take over to be complete 2030. We have heard of Agenda 21, but the 2030 Agenda isn't quite so familiar. Agenda 2030 emphasizes gender and racial equality, eradication of poverty, and a total abolition of violence and hate. Sounds familiar, right? It lays out the future world is based entirely on these goals, that the only way to achieve these things is through sustainability, development, and control of climate change. Oh, and the planet will be totally poverty-free by 2030 as well. Here are a few pertinent points. It actually came into effect in January 2016. Its full title is transforming our world, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The areas covered by the agenda are people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. The 17 goals and the 169 targets of the agenda seek to build on the Millennium Development Goals and complete those that were not achieved. Declaration agreed upon at the United Nations meeting in New York has 53 points. Point 2 sets a tone on behalf of the people we serve. We have adapted a historic decision on a comprehensive, far-reaching, and people-centered set of universal and transformative goals and targets. We commit ourselves to work tirelessly for the full implementation of this agenda by 2030. Points 5, 18, and 28, and particularly point 29 are particularly interesting. Now, in theory is wonderful, rainbows and unicorns for everyone. It's repetitive in the extreme, constantly pointing out the sanctity of sovereign nations and saying these issues apply to every single person on the planet. So, how can I turn the 2030 agenda into arrival of the one world government? Simple. It is entirely impossible to achieve what they have laid out without a one world government. The New World Order we have heard so much about over the last few years. This is what they are stating will be achieved by 2030, with all countries somehow miraculously restraining their own culture, resources, and economies. To eradicate hunger, some points here, to eradicate of hunger across the planet, to eradicate of race inequality across the planet, total eradication of poverty across the planet, total eradication of gender inequality across the planet, total eradication of war across the planet, total eradication of malaria and other mosquito-borne diseases across the planet, total eradication of TB across the planet, a standard of education for every child on the planet, clean water and sanitation for every person on the planet, a decent job for every worker on the planet, sustainable economic growth in every country on the planet, sustainable agriculture on the planet, sustainable livestock production across the planet, a reduction in natural resource use in every country on the planet, a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in every industrialization on the planet, a reduction of food and flood and drought events in suspectable locations around the world. Wow, it's like where's Tinkerbell? Do you have that magic wand? Bing, right? There are other odds and ends they have thrown in, but the bottom line is that all these things will be done by 2030. Really? Honestly, there are barely half a dozen countries on the planet that can engage in conversation without some disagreement, and they honestly expect us to believe that there will be enough international cooperation while retaining nation sovereignty to achieve even one goal on that list. The Islamic State will be our friends. India will give war to Pakistan. North and South Korea will kiss and make up. Iran will stop making nuclear bombs. Israel and Palestine will finally shake hands and sort their differences. Right. Achieving any goal of the goals that on that list is impossible unless one single government calls the shots and enforces conditions whereby the goals become achievable. That means the removal of sovereign status for individual nations. It means one giant money pot made up of cash for every nation that has cash to finance these initiatives. Globalism just took on a whole new meaning. That's Daisy Luther. She's living in Northern California. Well. What a wet dream. But all the stuff here on sustainable and all that can be done on our own. Urban farming. You know, we don't need them to tell us how to grow food and all that. And of course, malaria and tuberculosis. Take care of your health, please. Invest in your health. But that's how they want to do it by 2013. And you know what? It's easier said than done. And the truth of the matter is, it's going to crumble. Okay, it's going to crumble at their feet. And if they're going to make this achievable, they're going to have a lot more wars and even industrializations to get us distracted and fight one another to make this achieved. But you know what? It won't be successful. Okay? And that's enough said on that area. So, let me see here. I'll be back in a moment. Stick around. Okay, so the next thing we'll be talking about here is from intelnews.org, and came out a few days ago. It's entitled "Swiss Vote to Give Unprecedented Surveillance Power to Spy Agencies" by Ian Allen. And as it reads here, voters in Switzerland have strongly approved a proposed law that aims to expand the surveillance powers of Swiss intelligence agencies. The move is uncharacteristic of the Swiss, who have historically been skeptical of giving far-reaching surveillance powers to their government. In the late 1980s, the Swiss public opinion was shocked by the revelation that the country's federal military department has spied without permission of tens of thousands of Swiss citizens for many decades under a top secret project codenamed P-27. In response to the revelations, P-27 was ended. The Swiss intelligence agencies were reorganized and stricter parliamentary controls were imposed on their activities. Today, even the CCTV cameras are rarely used in Switzerland, while Google has not given permission to incorporate the country's streets into its Street View application due to strict local privacy laws. Opponents of the proposed law warned that it would end Switzerland's long history of protecting civil liberties and would be increased cooperation between Swiss and foreign spy agencies, thus harming the country's tradition of political neutrality. But terrorist attacks in nearby Belgium and France have shaken public opinion in small Alpine country, which is home to numerous international agencies, including a regional branch of the United Nations. Consequently, nearly 66% of voters backed the proposal in elections on Sunday, which saw 41% of participation. The result will allow Swiss intelligence and security services, such as the Federal Agents Intelligence Service, to put suspects under electronic surveillance using wiretaps, internet-based software, and hidden devices such as cameras and microphones. Despite its long history of public neutrality, Switzerland is not unaccustomed to espionage scandals. In 2009, Switzerland's Neue Zeitung newspaper said that a number of listening devices more likely of Israeli origin had been discovered in a room designated for sensitive meetings on disarmament issues at the United Nations building in Geneva. In 2013, the Swiss parliament blocked legislation designed to help the United States identify tax evaders, just days after it was revealed that the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency had conducted an espionage operation targeting a Swiss bank executive. And in 2015, the Swiss federal prosecutor launched an investigation into claims that the country's largest telecommunications providers, Swisscom AG, have been spied on by a consortium of German and American intelligence agencies. Wow. That's what can fear do to you, my friends. And I remember the time when Switzerland became a member of the United Nations in October 2001. It's like, what on earth are you folks doing? This is part of the Orwellian agenda. And of course, what Switzerland wants, and of course, the UN wants to disarm the Swiss as well. They need to, as far as I'm concerned, the people in Switzerland need to burn that UN building down in Geneva. Symbolically speaking, to be exact. You've got to chase their behinds out and let them go back, chase them out to the Alps and to see if they survive or not. And this is a real shame when they use the fear factor and the voters want to approve a law to expand surveillance powers on Swiss intelligence agencies. Very, very intriguing. That's one thing you gotta really be aware of. Who's behind the curtain, controlling everybody? It's a real shame, my friends. We're going to this Orwellian age. I know one thing. George Orwell is rolling in his grave. Probably saying, I told you bastards so. Let's hope for the best for Switzerland, and they hope they get this countered and counter everything. Because the truth of the matter is, even the surveillances, every high gadget has a flaw. And the people in Switzerland should know that. Don't give up your freedoms, period. End of story. Next one here came from Mass Private Eye, blogspot.org, and it came out a while back, if I'm correct. Let me see. It came out a while back. It's interesting. Actually, it came out today. It says here about spying streetlights equipped with microphones, Wi-Fi readers, and more coming to a city near you. And it's interesting because it reads over here that it says, soon streetlights equipped with shot spotter microphones will be in every city and town. That's because GE, Lighting, and ShotSpotter SST are working together to spy on everyone. Hooray! Last year, GE and SCT announced they're combining forces to put SST surveillance devices into streetlights. A memorandum of understanding between GE Lighting and SST Inc., developer of the ShotSpotter crime detection and location suite, lays ground to embedding sophisticated SST technology into GE's intelligent LED streetlights. We've entered an era where lighting is much more than illumination, says Rick Freeman, Global Product General Manager, Intelligence Device, GE Lighting. The ecosystem we are building with our Intelligent Environments for Cities solution is transforming street lighting into the analytical brain of urban life. And this MOU with ShotSpotters give one or more options for cities to unlock new potential benefits for their city teams and their residents. We've entered an era where lighting is so much more than illumination. If they talking about spying on an entire population, then I guess they're right. While the potential benefits to residents, fear and control are two things that come to mind. More on that below. To learn how police use shot spotters on public conversations, you can click right here. You can click that, and it gives you a rundown, and of course. That came out from January 14th. And of course, Homeland Security DH runs police departments are using ShotSpotter to spy on public conversations. There you go. So I'm going to go back on that one. So just definitely look that up. And we will continue on here, my friends. Let me see here. So we will go a little further. And let me see. Yeah, GE lights are designed to spy on the environment, the public. We install low-impact LED street lights throughout the municipal grid to help cities improve energy efficiency, and also equip them with sensors that see, hear, feel the environment around them. Network streetlights are designed to spy on parking lots and traffic. According to GE, soon network streetlights will spy on parking lots and traffic. Network LED streetlights will have the ability to direct drivers to available spaces with the help of built-in sensors and wireless transceivers. The city streetlight could serve as a sensor to give warnings in the event of severe weather or another event, or help manage traffic and offer residents a faster route home. Streetlights to send real-time alert to the public. We partner with vendors and developers on software applications that use our data for everything from real-time transit trackers to public safety alerts. Companies like Sensity, seen above, equipped with WF Wi-Fi detectors, and there's links in that so you can check it out. Okay, how Would they send the public alerts, you ask, by spying on your vehicles or cell phones, Wi-Fi signals, of course, to find out how DHS and the police use Bluetooth detectors to spy on us? Please read the article titled Highway Bluetooth Detectors Spying on Motorists and Pedestrians. And you can check that out too. And that came out a while back. Interesting stuff here, right? Oh, absolutely. So, interesting stuff here. And of course, think about what's happening. Streetlights are being designed to spy on conversations, cell phones, parking lots, traffic, and more. And of course, it says here, GE Lighting and ShotSpotter are creating a massive database on everyone. And of course, you have a gentleman here. It says here, but video reveals was really behind SST. Approximately 1 minute, their CEO boasts about accumulating data at a massive rate and massively developing surveillance microphones across entire cities. His name is Ralph A. Clark. He's the president CEO of ShotSpotter. And here's what he has to say.
At ShotSpotter, we've been doing this now for 20 years and combining intelligence sensors with communications networks to be able to detect, locate, and alert on gunfire. In the process, game changed the way police departments can respond to violent crime in real time. So, we've learned a lot in the process of doing this, and fundamentally, our business model had to change to make this kind of technology more broadly available to more agencies. And for us, that required going from selling things to selling outcomes. And because now you have the data to measure the outcomes, it becomes a lot easier to position your value proposition and be compensated appropriately for that. So, we continue to look for opportunities to kind of expand our footprint. In many ways, we're still very true to the original technical vision of the company, which is about detecting and locating gunfire or explosive events. We've since applied that beyond urban gunfire to include blast fishing, also detecting poaching events in South Africa. We're accumulating data at a massive rate. We think at some point in time that data is going to be extremely valuable. And fortunately for us, linking up with Current, we can now look to deploy our technology in already existing infrastructure, i.e. LED-controlled lights, to offer a completely different service. Typically, in the past, we've been able to focus in tightly controlled areas, so 3 square miles, 4 square miles, 5 square miles, because we had the cost of deploying the sensors and we had the material cost of the sensors. Now, linking up with Current, that frees us from that. We essentially get a free ride, if you will, and can massively deploy across an entire city, which now opens up brand new market opportunities and completely new use cases beyond traditional U.S. urban gun violence.
Well, to be very honest, I am not really impressed. It may sound good, but you gotta look at the fine print as well. You gotta look at all sides. What's gonna enhance is it enhance humanity or enslave? Well, based on what I've been reading so far, it can be enslave, invade more of your privacies, and if you're gonna say you got nothing to hide, just say, hey, I'm a number, walk around naked for all I care. That's how you gotta look at these things. It's very disturbing. Excuse me, I just coughed a little bit, but don't worry, I don't have any whooping cough by any means. And so I'm going to continue on here. And it says here, streetlights combined with surveillance are designed to be more cost affordable. With ShotSpotter. Oops, shoot, they darn it. Hold on here. I hit the wrong button, but that's okay. I'll be in here in a moment. Come on. Yeah. It says here with ShotSpotter sensors embedded into existing lighting fixtures throughout the city, rather than deploying them on their own mesh network. Broader coverage areas will be available at a cost-affordable basis, creating value for emergency responders and communities alike. What they're saying is by combining street lights and surveillance, cities and towns will save money. There's a nationwide issue that's getting worse. DHS and Department of Justice hand out grant money to private companies that are turning cities and towns into massive surveillance hubs. Yes, can we say blackmail and fascism? Alright. Last week, I warned everyone that the array of things collected, facial, biometric, and license plate information combined, that the GE and ShotSpotter and truly frightening pictures comes to light, pun intended. The only data that will not ready be public is a limited set of images used for improved computer vision software. These images will contain no sensitive PII, but some may show faces and license plate numbers. The University of Chicago, as a copyright holder of the data, will be responsible for responding to law enforcement requests. SST works with CCTV to spy on entire cities and towns. According to SST's Flex Data, police use CCTV cameras and shot spotters to spy on entire cities and towns. Constant 360-degree wide area acoustic surveillance throughout large coverage areas, precise locations including latitude and longitude street address. ShotSpotter technology offers an interoperability engine which allows ShotSpotter Flex to interface with standards-based third-party software, including surveillance, CCTV systems, etc. Earlier this year, I wrote a 4-part series warning everyone that police are using public and private CCTV cameras to spy on us. Yes, I do remember the stingrays too, so I did brought that up, and I brought them up on my past shows. And I will continue on here. Purdue University and DHS emit spying CCTV are all about control. Purdue researchers have developed a prototype system called Visual Analytics for Command, Control, and Interoperability Environments, or they call it acronym is VACCINE. Interesting. I love these little cute names they put in there, which allows law enforcement to tap into thousands of CCTV cameras. Did you catch that? VACCINE is all about command and control, a DHS-run program with an acronym that boasts about controlling the public. It doesn't get much more brazen than that. According to UK Sun article, CCTVs will allow cops and even private companies to track people's movements. Eventually, CCTV cameras will be able to work out the identity of the people that they are looking at as long as they have pictures of them. Soon, no place will be safe from Big Brother's prying eyes and ears. VACCINE and the International Chiefs of Police are working together to spy on everyone. The 2014 IACP annual conference will include the presentation of 3 vaccine technologies. This event that takes place in Orlando, Florida from October 25th to the 28th involves more than 10,000 professionals representing all sectors of law enforcement who are looking for new information products and to improve agency operations. Let's see that link there. It's a while back. If I'm correct, that's in May. Yeah, and all those links are very interesting. So definitely, folks, you gotta really look at these areas. Yeah, definitely look at these areas. It's very scary. You know what I'm saying? More of the Big Brother finale, and of course they're gonna use the war on terror as an excuse for everything. And it is the 14th. Let me just check this out here. Yeah, I'm just checking this out. Bear with me here, my friends. Yeah, future driving the police state. There you go. Okay, so there's a lot of information on here, my friends. Definitely check this out. And I want to just go back. Oops, sorry about that. Boom. Come on, what's going on here? Alright, I'm going to try to get this thing going again. Darn it. See what I can do here. Hold on. But, yeah, there's a lot of scary crap here, my friends, so that's why you always have to pay attention and do what's right, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know why they don't want to get me back here, but I'll try to make it back here as I can. So, one moment. Yep, I am back. What the heck? Good grief, do it one more time. very 1984ish, I would say. Not for my friends, very 1984 orientated. So you always gotta look at all these areas, and that's what I tell everyone. You gotta pay attention to what is happening, and I don't like this at all. And I like to thank folks like all these other potters out there and so forth. And it's good to know about it. It really is good to know. And boop, take that back. Come on. So, only thing I say, my friends, if you create gadgets to counter all this, do it, because it is very annoying, and I will firmly will admit that. And I just don't like this at all. So I'm going to hit the next one here. It came by telecrunch.com. And this one here is entitled Facebook, Amazon, Google, IBM, and Microsoft come together to create the partnership of AI. The world's largest technology companies hold keys to some of the largest database on our planet. Much like goods and coins before, its data is becoming an important currency for the modern world. Data value is rooted in its applications to artificial intelligence. Whenever a company owns data, effectively owns AI. Right now, that means companies like Facebook, Amazon, Alphabet, IBM, and Microsoft have a ton of power. In an act of self-governance, these 5 companies came together to announce the new launch of the new partnership on AI. The group tasked with conducting research and promoting best practices. Practically, this means that the group of tech companies will come together to discuss enhancements in artificial intelligence. The group also opens up a formal structure for communication across company lines. It is important to remember that on a day-to-day basis, these teams are in constant competition with each other to develop the best products and services powered by machine intelligence. Financial support will be coming from the initial tech companies that are members of the group. Best in the future, membership and involvement is expected to increase. User activists, nonprofit ethicists, and other stakeholders will be joining the discussion in the coming weeks. We want to involve people impacted by AI as well, said Mustafa Suleiman, co-founder and the head of applied AI at DeepMind, a subsidiary of Alphabet. The organizational structure has designed to allow non-corporate groups to have equal leadership side by side with large tech companies. Today, as of today's launch, companies like Apple, Twitter, Intel, and Baidu are missing from the group. Though Apple is said to be enthusiastic about the project, their absence is still notable because the company has fallen behind in artificial intelligence when compared to its rivals, many of which are part of this new group. The new organization really seems to be about promoting change by example. Rather than preach to the tech world, it wants to use standard open license to public research on topics including ethics, inclusivity, and privacy. The power of AI is in the enterprise sector, said Francisca Razi, an ethics researcher at IBM Research. For society at large to get the benefits of AI, we first have to trust it. The focus on the organization is refreshing juxtaposition to more pop culture discussions about the risk of artificial intelligence. While the jury is still out to whether a singularity event could threaten mankind, we already face a long list of challenges on today's world of AI. While computers are not at a point yet where they're to take care all of our jobs, they can amplify the negative tendency that humans already possess. A biased world can result in biased data sets and, in turn, biased artificial intelligence framework. To combat this, companies like Microsoft have already formed AI ethics advisory boards, but rather than override existing efforts, the new group arguments projects already undertaken at individual companies and provides a forum for sharing valuable advice. The group plans to make discussions and minutes from meetings publicly available. Ooh, it's like interesting. So they don't make it look pretty, but it can always do the underhand, under the rug, under the table agenda. So this is really, you gotta look at all sides. I'm not saying all these folks who work here are bad people, but you're gonna expect these wrongful elements gonna try to take advantage of it for their own personal gain. I'm not really too crazy about artificial intelligence in a lot of areas, but can it enslave humanity? Yes, if it goes to the wrong hands. So you gotta really just make that decision for yourselves, my friends, okay? But one thing for sure, I don't really, like I said, it has its pros and cons, but you gotta make a decision for yourselves. So, do that for your own well-being. Alright. So the next one here. Came from the 10th Amendment Center. And this one is entitled Janet Yellen Grilled on Federal Reserve Partnership. And it's by Phil Bishop of the Mises Institute. It says here, just days after Trump accused the Federal Reserve of playing politics with low interest rates during the first presidential debate, which he did say that, Congressman Scott Garrett challenged Chairman Janet Yellen today on whether Fed's officials were guilty of playing politics this campaign season. In particular, Garrett questioned the actions of federal Governor Lael Brainard, who raised eyebrows earlier this year by donating the legal maximum to Hillary Clinton's campaign. Ooh. Since the Fed's decision to maintain low interest rates is widely seen as benefiting Hillary Clinton, and given that Brainard's action opened herself up to what Garrett described as the appearance of conflict. Garrett asked whether she had rescued herself from the FOMC. Yellen responded that Brainard did not, and was not asked to, and was not barred from donating to political campaigns according to the Hatch Act. Interesting about the Hatch Act. Okay, I might have to check that one out. Garrett pushed further, knowing that multiple media outlets have been openly speculating about a potential role for Brainard in the Clinton administration. The congressman asked Yellen whether such a conversation between Brainard and Clinton would be a violation of Fed policy. Yellen responded by saying while she would not need to check with Fed lawyers, she didn't see any conflict. That's right, according to Janet Yellen, there is nothing wrong with a sitting Federal Reserve official lobbying a presidential candidate for a future job. Even though they have the ability to vote on Fed decisions, they can dramatically impact the American economy. Going further, Garrett offered several other examples that help unravel the facade in the non-political Fed. He noted that many credited Ben Bernanke's decision to indefinitely extend his quantitative easing program just a few months before his re-election for easing economic concerns that had been bubbling for months prior. Also, Garrett pointed out that current Fed officials regularly meet at work with the Obama administration's employees, while much of this work is direct consequence of the Fed being tasked with greater regulatory responsibilities following from the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act. A politicized Fed can pretend to be nonpartisan, even if it's simply an unfortunate consequence of bad legislation. Of course, it shouldn't come as a huge surprise that the Fed is political given the institution's history. For example, Arthur Burns, who served as the federal chairman under Nixon, kept records in his personal diary about the close relationship he had with the White House. Though making sure not to be seen together out in public, Burns described numerous private meetings and telephone conversations with the president. His relationship with Nixon also helped him to overcome his concern about the president's plan to close the gold window. writing that he assured the president and I would support his new program fully. So based on well-documented actions of the Federal Reserve, both past and present, it should be obvious that it is claim of independence as shallow as its numerous promises to raise rates and return to normal monetary policy. This is worth remembering the next time you hear a politician evoke Fed independence and explaining why they don't support and audit the Fed. And it's actually Theo Bishop direct. It was originally from the Mises Institute Social Media Marketing. So it's originally in that site. And see, it is absolutely nefarious, my friends. Absolutely. And that's why I get real pissed off when I hear about people trying to suck up to the feds. And this is dead wrong, okay? Plain and simple. But folks gotta really have to look at why the Federal Reserve has to go, because they are one big criminal entity. And it's interesting, I just started looking at the Hatch Act. Okay, this is by uslegal.com. Ooh. It explains what the Hatch Act is. And it's interesting. It says the Hatch Act of 1939 is a piece of United States federal legislation which prohibits federal employees of the District of Columbia, and certain employees of state and local governments from engaging in partisan political activities. The act was named after Carl Hatch of New Mexico, who protested the political involvement of federal employees in primaries and the general elections and sponsored the bill that became the Hatch Act. In 1993, the act was substantially amended. The 1993 amendments, Title V, United States Code, Section 7321 to 7326, clarified the rights of federal employees to a great extent. The act bars only the misuse of authority or influence and misuse of workplace and official duties. The Hatch Act reforms amendments of 1993 permits most federal employees to take part in partisan political management and partisan political campaigns. While federal employees are still prohibited from seeking public office in partisan elections, most employees are free to work while off duty on the partisan campaigns of the candidate of their choice. However, a small group of federal employees are subject to greater restrictions and continue to be prohibited from engaging in partisan political management and partisan political campaigns. The Hatch Act, Title V, U.S. Code, Section 7321 to 7326 forbids employees of the United States and its agencies, generally from politicizing the workplace. It assures that federal employees are appointed and promoted according to merit, that they serve the public equally regardless of political affiliation. What's interesting, because legally the Federal Reserve is a private corporation. It's not a federal government entity. So the congressman may have been mistaken by saying about Bernard's actions. So you have to really see that as well. But really always think about that, But the whole thing is the Federal Reserve is unconstitutional. Congress should regulate money under Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, and of course on the state level. And gold and silver coins, okay, and even Section 8 about gold and silver coins too. So they're a legal entity, and Janet Yellen needs to get grilled. She needs to be thrown in prison. So that's how I look at it. I call it RICO, okay, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to add the Hatch Act to that. And finally, this came out, the Merger Center, mengercenter.org. It's morely like a commentary. Came out, I think the 23rd, I believe. But it's interesting here. It says here, Symbiotic Relationship Between Central Banking and Total War by Paul Martin Foss. The following is a prepared version of a speech delivered at the Ron Paul Institute Conference in Sterling, Virginia. I'm here to today to talk about one of the most important but also most overlooked issues of our day, the relationship between central banking and total war. When you focus on central banking and the problems that result from it, it is very easy to see how central banks enable larger and more centralized and more persuasive governments, but it isn't always for those who oppose war to see how central banks enable war. So I'll go ahead and give you the kind of a 10,000 foot view of the symbiotic relationship between central banking and war. One of the primary actions that states engage in is fighting war, but war costs money. Armies march on their stomachs, and someone has to buy necessary food and transport it. Weapons and armament cost money too, all of which has to be paid for. So we have kings and governments historically gotten that money from, particularly with their own treasuries when their own treasuries ran out. As Willie Sutton could have told them, banks. Banks developed initially as a means for merchants to store their funds safely and securely. But even those banks took in so much money that they got an idea to loan out to some of those funds, hoping that they could juggle loans and receive enough payment on outstanding loans to satisfy demands for redemption by depositors. Thus was born fractional reserve banking and the recourse to banks as leaders of money. Sure, King could expropriate money from banks, but that only went so far. If you continue to rob banks outright, they would eventually rather hide their money or disappear from the kingdom, and the king was left with no money to fight his wars. So what was a relationship that has developed over time and become ever closer and more symbiotic over the course of time between banks and governments? It's a classic I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine type of relationship. In exchange for providing funds to governments, banks got special privileges in return. One need look no further than the Bank of England, the first really modern central bank and the modern model for numerous other central banks. To see this principle in action, the Bank of England was founded in 1694 with the purpose of providing funding to the English government to rebuild its navy. The Royal Navy has lost badly to the French Navy, and British sought to rebuild and rearm. The bank took in money from investors, provided it to the government in exchange for government bonds, and that was given the privilege of issuing bank notes against those bonds. And forgive me, I'm scratching my ear. Over the bank's history, it continued to receive additional privileges from the English government, eventually accumulating and gaining a monopoly over banknote issuance in 1844. There were various other barriers to entry that were put in place to keep people from competing against the Bank of England. Smaller private banks just could not compete with the government privileges given to the Bank of England. As it got larger and larger, it got too big to fail, and every time it going bankrupt, the government would bail it out, and in exchange, the Bank of England will give the English government a lot more money to fight wars. One of the first casualties of wartime is fiscal and monetary discipline. No matter how little spending government did it before it goes to war, once it engages in war, there is no limit to how much money it wants to spend. National debts increase, borrowing increases, taxation increases, all in an attempt to win the war. In particular, under a specie standard, specie redemption is one of the first things to go. That means that depositors can no longer take their banknotes to the bank and redeem them for gold and silver. The Bank of England was a beneficiary of many government measures over the years to suspend specie redemption at many points throughout its history, particularly during the period of 1797 to 1821, when the gold standard was suspended in order to fight against Napoleon. Good grief, fiat money. But suspending specie redemption is not just limited to England. It has happened in the United States on numerous occasions. During the War of 1812, specie redemptions were suspended throughout the various financial panics of the 19th century. Specie redemption was suspended. During the Civil War, special redemption was suspended, and after the Civil War is very important in understanding the relationship between the central banking and the war in the United States. The Civil War saw the passage of the Legal Tender Act and National Banking Act, the first issuance of unbacked paper money currency in the United States, so-called greenbacks, was the Legal Tender Act, and the establishment of the national banking system, which we all take for granted today, was a result of the National Banking Acts. These acts had as their purpose the establishment of the national bank and monetary system for the purpose of funding and conducting the war against the Confederacy. Remember that the privilege of engaging in the banking business has almost always been tied to purchases of government debt. If you wanted a state charter, you had to buy state debt. If you wanted a national charter, you had to buy federal government debt. That once again demonstrates the link between centralizing the banking system and engaging in total war. Look at the founding of the Federal Reserve System just before World War I. The Federal Reserve was founded ostensibly to provide for an elastic system of currency to overcome the financial panics that plagued the economy. But during World War I, the Federal Reserve was actively involved in the war effort throughout its marketing of Liberty bonds. Government spending on training, weapons, and munitions increased tremendously after the United States entered the war, so the Treasury was forced to rely on bond insurances to fund its spending. Not only did the Fed act as a marketer of the bonds and its fiscal agents of the Treasury for these bond sales, it also lent money to member banks at lower interest rates if they used that money to purchase the bonds. It was essentially increasing the money supply and artificially stimulating demand for the bonds. By 1919, the money supply was nearly double, which had been in 1914, with the course of corresponding rise in prices that resulted in the forgotten depression of 1920 and 1921. About the author and about which authors Tom Woods and Jim Grant have written. The Fed continued its support of war efforts during World War II, stating it was prepared to use its power to ensure at all times ample supply funds for financing the war effort. That became a focus of Fed's missions throughout the World War II. War bonds were once again issued by the Treasury and marketed by the Fed. The Federal Reserve banks agreed to purchase Treasury bills at 3/8% interest rates, which was pegged until 1947. The Fed was even allowed to purchase securities directly from the Treasury. Of course, this easy flow of money was quite welcome as government continued to expand in the aftermath of World War II, so the Fed continued to peg interest rates until 1951 Treasury-Fed Accord. Even after that, however, the Fed continued to engage in an expansionary monetary policy. Remember that private ownership of gold was banned in 1933, so gold coins and gold certificates could no longer circulate as money. Thank you, Franklin Dickhead Roosevelt. The American people could no longer act as a check on expansionary monetary policy by redeeming their dollars for gold. Only foreign governments could. Over the course of the 1960s, the overall money supply nearly doubled as the U.S. government engaged in the guns and butter policies of President Johnson. Foreign governments saw this happening and began to redeem their dollars for gold. This prompted President Nixon to close the gold in 1971. Since that time, there has been no constraint on the Federal Reserve's ability to create money, which is what we have seen as a massive increase in the size and scope of the federal government since then. We no longer have a gold standard or a gold species standard or even a gold exchange standard to act as a check on money creation. It is no coincidence that the massive growth of government has come about at the same time as a massive growth in the size and influential central banks. You can't fund $4 to $5 trillion government budget. You can't fund military bases in 100 plus countries around the world. You can't fight a massive internal war against drug users. You can't fund an open end war on terror. You can't fund an omnipresent surveillance state without existence of a central bank. Governments can't keep to their budgets, so they resort to borrowing. Central banks continue to ensure that there are ready buyers of newly issued government debt and that the bond markets remain large and liquid. They ensure that the national banking cartel that exists in this country continues to maintain its privileges, government-subsidized deposit insurance, Federal Reserve bailout facilities, and barrier to entry that prevent competition in the banking sector. They ensure that banks who loan money to the government maintain their privileged, protected status. If you really want to control government's ability to go to war, you have to eliminate cheap, easy money, and that can only come about at ending the system of central banks that exists today. I agree completely, and thank you, Mr. Martin Foss, for making that happen. So, it's just the history of what central banking does. Very good example. 1920s Germany. They had to pay their restitution. They were trying to pay their restitution off for World War I. The central banks in Germany printed money into thin air. Fiat. No gold standard. Within 6 years, their money got into a bust. Everyone tossed their money out in the streets. A couple of clowns were got their real barrels, and thought they were millionaires. They were all walking to the market, and the clerk goes, "How you doing?" He goes, "Okay, so what the hell is all this?" I'm being paraphrasing. "Oh, I'm gonna buy stuff from the store." He goes, you can't even buy a loaf of bread." And what happened? The Nazis took over. Something to think about. I want to add that too for the fall of the Reichsmark, for sure. So I'm definitely going to do that. And that's it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. That includes all my archives you find on my Spreaker page. If you have any questions, comments, or recommend something that I could find interesting, whatever you do, please send your correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube. Ooh, man. Freedoms Network. iHeartRadio. That's an 8, right? Yeah, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, and Scene.life. Or you can email me at LokiLuck3, which is all together. It's the number 3, okay? At gmail.com. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.